Who would you say would be the top 8 to finish the year?
Well, it didn't take me a whole lot of time figuring out my top 8. What took a lot of time is actually putting them in order. I think there's a big separation between the top 8 and the bottom 8, and the top 8 are extremely even. I think anyone there can win the competition. The one team that isn't in there that I think can force their way in is Manly. I think they've shown a fair bit, and their younger players and more inexperienced players have certainly come on this year. But I've gone the Cowboys on top, Roosters, Storm and the Sharks rounding out the top 4. And the Broncos, they didn't play finals last year, obviously had a disappointing end to the year. I think they can play finals this year.
So who do you see playing in the grand final and winning it?
Well, it's hard to go past the top 2, the Cowboys and the Roosters. I think the Cowboys, they're a team that haven't had a whole heap of recruitment over the off-season, but sometimes we look at who's coming to the club and not look at the development of the players and the improvement of players that have been there. Tom Dearden, Murray Taulagi and young Nanai on the right-hand side. I think they're players that are really going to come on this year. Drinkwater's had a fantastic start to the year, and I think if they can all take an improvement in their level. Reece Robson's another one that's had an outstanding season last year, and I think they're the team to beat.
What about your surprise packets, or your surprise packet for this year?
Well, I think the Broncos. Well, the Broncos didn't play finals last year, and I was really impressed with their win over the Panthers on Friday night. And they did it with a lot of character. They did it with some resilience, something that we haven't seen in the Broncos over the last few years. And Reece Walsh coming to the club, I think he adds another point of attack and a bit of spark. I think if he hangs around Adam Reynolds, he'll create a lot of opportunities. So I think the Broncos can really elevate themselves this year.
Right, Freddie, what about your top 8?
I'm just going to wait for him to come up.
You can't remember what order you put them in.
I think everyone's to be very similar. I've got Manly in at 8 without Brisbane. I'm not sure what I'd do after the weekend watching Brisbane beat Penrith, although they were fantastic. So that could change in a couple of weeks, that top 8. But I think the Roosters, Brandon Smith, I think is a really big in for the Roosters. And if they can stay fit, they've already got 4 key players out today. But if they get all their players on the field, I think that's a really good lineup. And I think I've got them playing the Cowboys in the final. The Cowboys were impressive against Canberra, but I thought they looked vulnerable as well just after half time. Whatever happened out there, the coach will surely have a look at it. But they lost the field position and they had a couple of tries scored against them. But yeah, the Roosters, it's been a while since they've won it, 2019. So normally sort of ebbs and flows, that real heightened motivation, and this could be the year. A few of their players will be leaving soon. That's one man that good chance. I'm not sure if I don't think he's there next year. They've got some other Stefan Leno, I think, taking his position, but I see them. They can go all the way.
Why have you selected Manly as your surprise packet?
Well, I went out there in the pre-season and just saw Anthony Seibold and talking to a few of the players, and he's just a different voice. And you can just see in the players, I think they enjoy the different voice. They've got better facilities, and I think obviously buoyed by Tom Trbojevic, and the work he did over America. And I've got to say, that man there, DCE, watching his game and actually having a chat with him, there's a real focus about his footy this year. And I think if them two play to their potential, and they've got some real strike, they have as much strike as anyone. Ola Kawatu, you've got someone in the middle like Jake Trbojevic who just holds it so steady in the middle. If you watch his defence on the weekend, come up with a couple of errors, and so they've got a great balance, Manly. Their depth might be interesting if they have a few injuries, but and then we haven't seen him again this year either, Josh Schuster. So he's a real talent.
Yeah, we'll be talking a little bit more about the Seagulls and their win over the Bulldogs, and particularly that man DCE who Freddie just mentioned. But Joey, let's have a look at your top 8. Do you want to talk us through this one?
Well, the top 6 and 7 pretty much pick himself. I think we've all gone to the usual suspects. I've got the Broncos there at 8th. I think there'll be 4 or 5 clubs fighting out for that 8th position. I think it's Smokey could be the Tigers. But pretty much the top 6 and 7, they pick himself, the difference between the top teams and the bottom teams.
What is it about the Tigers?
I just think a new style of attack with Benji and Tim Sheens being there. I think they've recruited really well. I think Dewey coming back from the knee operation is a real big one. I love Dane Laurie as a player. He's a big one, Api Coruscant. We can see in Penrith how much they've missed him. Yeah, I just really like their team. I think their back row looks really balanced. I think John Bateman's a great buy. I just think if they can catch fire, and I don't know, just got the feeling this year there could be one team that just comes from nowhere and just, lights up the competition, and I think the team that can do that is probably the Tigers.
So if I had to ask you two, you said the top 6, right? You got Manly, Brisbane, you're saying the Tigers. If there was a club that wasn't going to have a great year, like out of that top 6?
Penrith.
If you're saying Penrith?
At the moment, yeah.
Yeah, Parramatta. Parramatta have still got to do it again. It's sometimes when you get there and you've worked so hard to get there, it's hard to do that work again. So that's the challenge for Parramatta, the Sharks, the Cowboys that had really good years last year, to actually put in that work to get there again. That's the challenge.
It either drains you or motivates you. You see some clubs, especially ones that go and they've got a young group that come together, they get excited by it and they come out stronger. But sometimes you're right, it's draining. Like, it takes so much, and then to get beat on the final day, it's like, it's a massive letdown.
You mentioned the Panthers there. Do you think that we spoke in the pre-show to Gus about their peak because they had lost, players, and being up for that many years? How do you see them going overall? Do you see them going off a cliff, or just not being at where they were?
Well, every year they lose 2 or 3, 4 players, and 2 or 3 of those are top-line NRL players. They're losing more next year. I think Appy's a massive loss for them. I think Kikau's a massive loss for them on the left-hand side. And what it does, it attacks your depth. So once you start to get some injuries, I think if you look, say, 2-3 years ago, their players in their top 30 from 22 to number 30 would be a lot stronger than now. They're punished for their success. I feel really sorry for Penrith. I've been quite vocal about it. They produce so many juniors and they get success, and then the juniors get poached. So it's a tough one for them.